Most people are not aware of the fact that we have a growing situation in this country, and it's been going on for decades, where we have people that end up not being able to afford bond to get out of jail before they go to court. And they end up spending years in jail. They're not convicted of a crime. They have been arrested, but they've not been convicted. And in my opinion, this violates the Sixth Amendment, which, as you read up above, or read as I'm doing this, that's the fair and speedy trial, among other things. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, is primarily focused on what should go on with the courts and with the judicial system. Most people aren't aware of that, but the Sixth Amendment says a fair and speedy trial. Well, how is it speedy when people spend years before they even get a chance to go to court? And then throw in the fact that there are, as I said, a growing number of them that are ending up spending that time behind bars. Now, all of that said, there are some states that are trying to work on this situation, and I'm going to have a few examples of it. The first clip I'm going to show you is Alabama. And they're going to go into the arguments for and against. I'm also going to go into a case in Mississippi where a guy spent 2.5 years in jail without going to court. He was having to ask the reporter that was talking to him. But it turned out that, well, he ended up not getting his day in court because all charges were dropped and the two police officers involved were arrested. Yes, you heard that. The two police officers were arrested for the incident that got him thrown in jail. This is a situation in this country, and it's happening around the world. While researching this, I came across that there's 30% of the population in jails that haven't had their court date yet. Now, when you throw in places like Rikers Island, which is a cesspool, New York City, I covered Rikers Island the other day. I'm doing more southern stuff in this video, but we seriously need to fix this problem. No joke, it needs to be fixed, and that's why I'm bringing this up. People should not be spending years in jail. So, let's get in this first clip. It's going to talk about the pros and cons of speeding it up via Alabama, and then we're going to talk about the case in Mississippi, and then I'm going to go into another interview that I came across that I thought y'all might want to hear on this issue.
Howdy y'all, this is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
Alabama lawmakers are considering could help clear the state's court backlog of violent crime cases, but one legal expert fears it could actually create a domino effect.
Your reporter Josh Gant speaking with an attorney tonight to find out where potential problems could develop with this proposed bill. Josh, what did you find out?
Yeah, Brittany, Steve, attorney Roger Appel says the Speedy Trial Act is good in theory, but he says things like more Anaya's Law cases may cause the system to slow down even more. Speeding up violent criminal cases without unnecessary delays is something Attorney General Steve Marshall is pushing for, a part of the Speedy Trial Act. The bill proposes tapping retired circuit judges to preside over specific cases to reduce violent crime.
We want to identify those cases that desperately need to be heard, in which the prosecutors and defense are prepared. The only thing that they're missing is a judge and a jury to be able to consider it.
You're going to have lots of problems that are going to come, but again, in theory, it's not a bad idea.
One of the problems could come with the Anaya's Law cases, with more people being denied bond in jail and awaiting trial, according to criminal defense attorney Roger Appel.
These people now who are charged with murder or capital murder, you're going to be forcing those trials to come to fruition. But in the same time, you're going to have people that are still in jail on crimes that aren't violent, that haven't been able to make bond. Their cases are going to be slowed down even more. You're going to have people that are out on bond on cases that may not be a violent crime, but their cases are going to be slowed down even more because you're prosecuting the other cases.
Appel says murder cases do take time, some longer than others.
I've handled, many of them. And they're not just, you get arrested, indicted, and then you go to trial a few weeks afterwards. These can be very complicated and complex cases involving expert witnesses and investigations by the defense.
Another issue could be staffing, according to a Facebook post from a current circuit judge who says if they use the staff, judicial assistants, court reporters, bailiffs of current sitting judges, then that judge can't hear any cases. He's suggesting amending the legislation to provide funding for staff. Of course, we'll keep you updated on what happens down in Montgomery. Brittany?
All righty, thanks, Josh. Measles.
Now, I'm going to give you an example of where this affects people. Here's a case of a gentleman by the name of Sinatra Jordan. He was driving with a female friend. It was her car, from what I'm hearing in this. He did do wrong. Don't get me wrong. He did do wrong. He was driving without a license, and he got pulled over. The cops claimed that when he sped away, because I guess he was freaking out, because, well, I don't understand why people do that, but he was driving without a license. But the cops claimed that he shot at them. He didn't. It's been proven. These two cops have been indicted. And his charges were dropped. He ended up getting shot at. The woman that was in the car with him, his friend, who I guess that he was getting to be close to, they were just hanging around. His friend's name is Sharita Harris, as you will hear. They were just cruising downtown Jackson, Mississippi. The Capitol Police Department, that's what they call it in Jackson, had pulled him over because he ran a red light. And then there were no dashboard cams, by the way. There are no body cams of any of this. He sped off because I guess he panicked, especially after the cops shot at him. The cops killed Sharita Harris, and he ended up getting arrested. Like I said, charges have been dropped. The two cops have been indicted. The two officers, their names are Jeffrey Walker and Michael Grunwald, are accused of using excessive force after a traffic stop. Shot Harris in the head. It was investigated by the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation and being prosecuted by the Attorney General's office. They have said, one statement said, to further accountability in 2024, MDPS has established an internal affairs division that operates independently of other agencies within MDPS and reports directly to Commissioner Tyndall. The division includes dedicated investigators tasked with independently handling complaints of officer misconduct. This is one of those cases. So, let's get into this clip.
Tonight, we're talking about some exclusive NBC News reporting about a man who spent more than 2.5 years in a Mississippi jail waiting for a trial that actually never happened. Sinatra Jordan had been accused of shooting at two police officers, setting off an intense car chase through the streets of Jackson in August of 2022. Officers opening fire on the car that Jordan was driving. It ended with Jordan's friend, who was in the passenger seat, getting shot in the head. She had to get multiple surgeries to remove the bullet from her brain. From jail, Jordan told investigators what happened. I want you to listen to the audio of that recording obtained by NBC News.
Them folks started shooting for no reason. So if you ran, you wouldn't know what to do. Somebody just up and get to shooting.
So Jordan's version is very different from what one of the officers involved in the incident said.
You could hear shots real loud at that time because we were going a reduced speed because of the tires, and they slowed down.
But here's the crazy part of it all. The case took this dramatic turn back in December of last year when the officers were each indicted by a grand jury in Jordan's case. Then, on March 11th, Jordan was able to strike a plea deal and walk free. The shooting charges against him were in fact dropped. NBC's John Shupe, did I say your name correctly?
You did.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Worked on this exclusive reporting, speaking to Jordan regularly throughout this entire ordeal. You were there the moment that he walked free after spending 2.5 years in jail, no trial, nothing, literally not. I mean, your reporting is so incredible because you talk about how at one point he was asking you for updates, not really even knowing what was going on with his case as he sat behind bars, just kind of waiting.
Well, this is what was so interesting about this. We were looking into several shootings that the Capitol Police were involved in Jackson.
Yeah.
And this one stuck out because Sinatra Jordan was in jail on the shooting and nothing was happening in his case. So over time, it became not just what happened in the shooting, but why is he in jail for so long?
How did it turn then to the officers? Like that's the key here. So they were going after Sinatra Jordan. They were saying, okay, the way in which you told the story is not true, is not accurate. The officer telling us that you shot at them. They were chasing you, hence why you're now being incarcerated and awaiting trial. And yet then suddenly on a dime, it turns and the officers are being indicted. Do we know what evidence led to that change?
No, I tried to figure out. I got access to a lot of evidence in the case, and there was nothing explicitly in the evidence that I had that pointed to something explicitly that the officers had done wrong. But when a grand jury deliberates, that's all confidential, sealed, the public can't see it, so we don't know exactly what happened inside the grand jury chambers.
So he's not the only one that's being held in a Mississippi jail for an inordinate amount of time without any trial. There are some kind of rules to all this, though, as well. In Mississippi, you got criminal cases that have to go to trial no later than 270 days after a defendant is indicted and arraigned. But they can basically be held indefinitely if they're waiting for that indictment, right?
Correct. Mississippi is one of only a handful of states in which there's no limit to the amount of time that you can wait between arrest and indictment before that 270-day clock starts ticking. And then, of course, after that clock starts ticking, even though there are, just like any state, speedy trial laws, there's any number of reasons why that clock can be paused and trials can be delayed indefinitely.
Wow. I know that your reporting has had a major impact as well on some policy changes in Mississippi. And I want you to walk us through that because these officers that were involved in this shooting, they were kind of a part of this task force in the streets of Jackson, Mississippi, right? And since your reporting emerged, I believe it was in 2023, there have been some policy changes in the way in which these officers, this task force, goes about its work.
Right. When this task force started working in Jackson, it was a big change for them.
Yeah.
They hadn't gotten basic equipment, body cameras, dashboard cameras, and also had outdated policies to reflect modern police standards, including how and when you can use deadly force. And so after we started reporting on these shootings in 2023, the policies were changed and updated.
How's he doing right now? How's Jordan doing?
I think he's slowly getting used to regular life. He's now got some charges on his record as a result of the plea deal.
Yeah.
He's got to find a job, get an ID, all these very basic
parole.
things.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to be hard for him to get.
Prohibitive for a lot of folks when you're on parole, and what you do with your life. John Shupe, really important stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
You just heard all that. You heard from Sinatra Jordan. You heard quite a bit. And like I said, these police officers were indicted December 17th, 2024. They're going to face their day in court. I don't actually think anything will happen to them. That's our justice system. But let's talk about another thing. One of the things is that these people are having a hard time affording bail. And it's backing up the court system. It's causing too many issues. Well, Rutherford County in Tennessee attempted to do this fix. I don't know if they've still got this. This is a clip from 4 years ago. But bail is a for-profit industry. Bail bonds people make a lot of money off of people that are arrested and have to bail out. Now, you and I both know that poor folks are not necessarily going to be able to afford some of these bails, especially like say Sinatra Jordan, who was having financial issues anyway, and here he is in that situation. And he wasn't even guilty of why he was spending all that time in jail. Now, he was guilty of, driving without a license and possibly running a red light, but that should not have ended up with somebody dying and all that other stuff. But I'm going to let you listen to this interview. They're talking about reducing bail and all that, but listen to the bail bonds person at the end of this interview. No joke. I want you to listen to this person.
All across the state, county jails are dangerously overcrowded, much of it because of nonviolent offenders who haven't even been convicted yet. News Channel 5's Kelsey Gibbs shows us how one local jail is trying to fix that problem.
We've learned in the last 20 years that keeping people incarcerated is not helping. And all it does is cost our citizens the cost of building bigger jails.
The Rutherford County Jail, like others in Tennessee, has reached its capacity.
It's a huge overcrowding issue. We've got
County Judge Lisa Eichscheid has been on the bench for 2 years. And in that time, she was handed a mission.
We've got people being incarcerated and held that are not found guilty yet just because they cannot afford to get out.
First-time offenders awaiting court on some nonviolent offense charges could be eligible for pretrial release.
When somebody spends 24 hours in jail and it's a first-time offender, it greatly affects them.
The county is looking to hire 3 counselors who will question the inmates on things like their past, income, and criminal history. The inmates will have to go through a background check and a drug test, and those answers and results will be handed to the judicial commissioners, and they determine who should be released.
This is a tool to use in lieu of bond.
Those charged with serious felonies and crimes against victims will not qualify, but not everyone is on board with the program.
This is a temporary fix, and that's the biggest problem.
Bail agents like Paul Roscoe Williams says not only does this idea take money out of their pockets, but now the cost of one of these offenders skipping court will no longer fall on bondsmen.
You're expecting taxpayers to pay for people to go to jail, not the person being arrested.
Williams says all this will do is flood the jails even more with failure to appear cases. Judge Eichscheid says this proposal is not to hurt the bonds companies, but to help the first-time offender. In Rutherford County, Kelsey Gibbs, News Channel 5.
Thanks, Kelsey. The cost to house an inmate for 24 hours in Rutherford County is nearly $60. The county commissioners will vote on this issue in 2 weeks.
So you heard all that. I want you folks to consider this. Do you think that it's fair for these folks to keep staying in jail before they even get a court date? I mean, yes, they get their initial hearing pretty quickly, but these folks are spending years in prison. Well, not in prison, in jail. And they're not, I mean, their lives are getting wrecked. If you're in a place like Rikers Island, that's a cesspool. I showed you what Rikers Island was like. Rikers Island is a cesspool and people are spending years in there without even having a court date. They're not getting their day before a judge to actually hear the actual crime. And it's a violation of the Sixth Amendment. I mean, it really is. And you heard that bail bondsman. It makes you wonder if some of this isn't being perpetrated by the fact that you've got bail bonds companies that have so much money that they're trying to make more, and it's being put on the back of poor people. I mean, rich people can afford to do all this. They can afford to get a good lawyer. They can afford to pay their bail. Heck, even upper middle class, lower middle class is starting to get hurt by it. But the lower classes, yeah, no. The socioeconomic poor folks that are on the lowest strata that get accused of so many crimes, yeah, they're not getting their day in court in appropriate time, and they can't afford to get a good lawyer, so they end up with the PD who, well, most of the time these PDs aren't really doing anything that's helpful. Are you starting to get what I'm saying here, or are you... I mean, you could disagree with me. Go ahead. Tell me if I'm wrong. But that's the situation that we've got now in this country. And it's growing. It's not getting better, it's growing. So we need to end this. I mean, the Sinatra Jordan situation was in 2022 when all that started. You've got people in, I mean, been going on for decades at Rikers in New York City. Yeah, this is more leaning towards what were violent crimes, but how many times have we found out that these violent crimes aren't being committed by the first person that the cops arrest, and the cops don't go after the right folks most of the time? They go after the convenient folks. They don't go after the real problem. That's the situation here in America, and I'm going to cover it. I know I'm a conservative, and I should be all for it. No, I am against folks not getting due process. I'm against American citizens not getting due process. These folks that are here illegally, they've already gone through their due process most of the time. Most of the time that they've avoided due process. They go out of their way to avoid due process. And then you've got these folks that are giving them extra credit. But this is American citizens. This isn't illegals. This is American citizens. So I'm going to talk out against it. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Help me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.